Welcome to episode 3 of Basics of Photography, and in today's episode we're going to be talking about pixels. What is a pixel and how do you calculate the amount of pixels in a sensor? So let's get into it. Now before we get into the video, if you want to check out any of the gear for yourself, check out the Amazon affiliate links in the description below. If you want to become a Patreon supporter and get early access to videos as well as exclusive shoutouts and some other benefits, check out the Patreon page in the description below. Well, let's get into it. First off, we need to understand what a pixel is. A pixel is two things. It can either be in a sensor and be the thing receiving the light. So pull this off and it kind of looks like a colorful piece of glass. And this is all the tiny little pixels that receive the light going into the camera. Or it could be sending out the light. If you're familiar with pixels already on TVs or displays or anything like that, it's basically what is in a sensor. But instead of sending out light, it's receiving it. So they can pack a lot more pixels into a much smaller form factor than a display or something like that. So that's a pixel. Either it receives light or it sends out light. But for our purposes, it receives it because it's in a camera. Next, let's move on to what a resolution is or what a K number is. First off, let's start with the K part. For video, it's measured in usually 4K, 5K, 6K, etc. There are some older resolutions that are measured in like 1080p or 720p, and that was the vertical part of the image. So for example, 1080p was 1080p tall by 1920 wide. So since then, from that resolution, it's all been changed to K numbers, which is an approximation of the amount of pixels on the horizontal part of the image. So 4K is 2160 pixels tall by 3840 wide, and 6K is 6144 wide by 3456 tall. So it's an approximation. It's not quite 4K, but it's very, very close. So that's what a K number is. And then megapixels, which you'll hear a lot of for photos, is the total amount of pixels in the image. And mega basically stands for million. So if you have a 32.5 megapixel sensor, like this camera does, then that's 32.5 million pixels. And that can seem like a big number, but it's 7K. So it's about 7,000 pixels wide and probably about 5,000 tall. But because those are such big numbers, multiplying those two becomes millions. So that's basically what a megapixel is. Vertical times horizontal. And for most cameras, you're going to be running anywhere from 8 to 12 megapixels, all the way up to 40 and even 100 on the highest end cameras. But if you're buying a 100 megapixel camera, it's not in the phone, there are a couple of those. You probably don't need to watch this video. You probably already know what megapixels are. But that's basically what it is the count of pixels in an image. Now, more pixels generally mean a sharper photo, but there is a limitation for the glass. So cheaper glass like this isn't going to look as good as nicer glass. The better glass you have, the sharper it will be and the better the photo. There's a lot more to photos than just glass and the sensor. There's different qualities of sensors and different types of glass, and there's contrast ratios and all that kind of stuff. But to simplify it, for pixels, more pixels is better and sharper most of the time. I will say there is a caveat to this, and that's with low light. You also want your pixels to be larger, not just more of them. So it just depends on the situation. But if you're a beginner photographer, more pixels generally mean sharper. And if you're professional, I know there's a lot more to that, but you know, that's what it is. So let me put these off to the side here. And that's pretty much it. There's a lot more to cameras as a whole. So if you have any further questions, leave them in the comments below and I will answer your question. So that's pretty much it. The last thing that affects the picture quality is compression, and I will get into that in a later video. So if you want to purchase any of the gear, check out the Amazon affiliate links or my Patreon page if you want to support me that way. Also, if you could please consider subscribing, that would help out a lot. Well, that's it, and I'll see you in the next one.